Okay.
Okay.
Yay, co-host. I'm gonna have my fire at medium low because we're going to saute onions. I have pre-cooked, pre-boiled beans. You can use canned beans as well. And this recipe, we technically use it a lot more with red beans. That is very common in Kenya. We grow a lot of corn, and usually corn is intergrown with the beans because they put nitrates back in the soil. So a lot of times where there is corn, there is going to be beans. We actually call it maize, not corn, and maize is typically white in color. And so a typical Kenyan household will have white corn flour. Okay, and that will be for the ugali, which we will make after. So as your pot is heating, we're going to grab some oil. You can use whatever you have, olive oil, corn oil, whatever you have at home. Okay. Just put enough so that your onions do not stick to the pan.
How big of a pot do we need?
Depends on the amount of beans you have. So if you're making about just a cup for one person or, two people with a small appetite, then you could probably go with a 2-quart pot, something like what I have in the background here. This would be good enough. As long as you have enough space to saute, and because you're going to be adding coconut milk, there'll be some liquid in there. So you obviously don't want it to splatter over. Okay, so I'm going to go in with onion. You can use whatever onions you would like, white, red, just depends on you and the taste. And again, this recipe can use black beans, it can use pinto beans, it can use whatever beans you have in your pantry. I like to let my onions saute a little low so they don't burn, and just so they release all the sweetness. If you do feel you put oil that's a little less, you can always add a little more into the pot. I might need to do that. And so we let that sit for a little bit. I do have ginger that's going to go in next. You can use a ginger garlic paste. I really love ginger, so I prefer to cut my ginger into chunks, and that's what I use. I put that next after the onions because it needs a longer time to cook. So that can go in now. So ugali is such a common dish in Kenya. I happen to come from Western Kenya. We're called the Luya tribe, and it is absolutely a staple. Every home has ugali. I'm talking about 5 times a week. If you grew up in the countryside as opposed to the city, you're probably having ugali 7 times a week. A lot of times it comes with whatever vegetables are most common. Something like kale is a little on the expensive side. So we do have like traditional vegetables that they grow, and a lot of times they dry them in the sun, which is kind of a preservation method. And that's what you'll find in most homes. And since ugali is so bland, it goes with everything. You can have it with different stews. You can have it with meat. You can have it with beans. You can have it with plain vegetables. Or you can have it with fried eggs.
So Velma, how old were you when you learned how to cook ugali?
So I learned to cook ugali in the 1st grade. My parents met when they were in college, and at that point, my father, both of them had studied education. And when you finish the degree, you were kind of posted wherever there was a job. So my father got posted way, way out. They met in Nairobi, which is the capital, but he was posted way out to Eldoret, which is another city. And because my mom was still in school, he had to go with me. So a lot of it was survival. He had to be at work, and he needed to make sure I was able to get something to eat when I came home during the day. So he taught me how to cook ugali pretty young, and he'd always have a large tray of eggs. So if he was running late, if there was no one else in the house, I always knew that I could make ugali and eggs. So I've been cooking forever, essentially. So just keep turning, and you'll smell the garlic start to release. And let your onions turn translucent.
What are the ratios? So Velma, what are the ratios? Ingredients have no ratios. What ratios do you recommend? The ratios of onions, ginger?
So I kind of wing it, and that's because I like onions, so I put a lot more onions because I would like to taste it. This is actually half of a large onion. This should be sufficient for my beans, which is probably what, 2.5 cups, 3 cups maybe. You can add more if you love to taste your onion. Some people love the onion to be in the dish but not to see it, so you can go less with that as well. If you really, really love the taste of onion, red is obviously better because it's a stronger, more pungent taste. The ginger is probably about a teaspoon, I believe. But again, if you're not a big ginger fan, I know for some people it's a little tart, then you don't have to put as much. So now that my onions are a little softer, I'm going to throw in tomatoes. You can use tomato paste, and if you do, then you do not need to put them in at this level. They will go in closer to the end. But because I have tomatoes, I want them to cook down kind of into a paste. So I'm going to throw them in now and continue to turn.
How much tomato?
This was 1 large tomato. So the reason the reason I don't measure so much is because for me growing up in Kenya, it was more about what was available. So if there was the 1 tomato, then you put the 1 tomato. If it was half a tomato that was available, that's what you would put. But yes, this is 1 large tomato.
Okay.
Ask how many people are cooking along.
So how many people are cooking along with me tonight? Nice.
Me?
Yay. Awesome. I cannot wait to see your finished dish.
I am.
Yay.
Awesome.
So with the tomatoes in, I'll turn the heat just a little higher, just a little.
Oh gosh. And somebody else is 3 people.
So my grandmother, because she was in the country, would cook on the 3 stones. Definitely harder to control temperature with that,
Yeah.
but they would always make these really, really big pots of ugali because they would be cooking for the whole homestead, so to speak. So we're talking about ugali for 7 to 10 people. Sometimes it took 2 or 3 people to turn it, and you will see the turning process when we make that, just to be able to get it to cook properly. As you turn the tomatoes, you can mash them if you are using tomatoes. Mash them as they cook. Just continue to turn and make sure that they do not burn. Rose, do you
Hi,
have
James.
ugali stories?
Oh,
I see you there, James. No, don't go hide.
so as for me, I'm from the eastern part of Kenya, which is the opposite of Velmah's side of Kenya. For me, I'm very poor at cooking ugali, that I'll admit. But when it comes to eating ugali, I'm an expert at that, and I love ugali and beans. So the only difference is the way she's making her beans. For us, would not add the coconut milk. But other than that, ugali is a very common dish all over Kenya. And it's one of those foods that everybody can afford to have, because maize, aka corn, is readily available for anybody. And that's one of the things that if your neighbor doesn't have maybe food, or they don't have their next meal, it's easy to give them like maybe a pound of flour or a pound of maize, and they can take it to the kosher meal, which is like a, what do you call it?
I guess it's a machine that grinds
maize
into flour.
Yeah, maize into flour, and that's how they can have their next meal. And again, beans are readily available pretty much everywhere. So it's common for people to trade or share. If I have maize, and I don't have beans, then we can easily trade. And then the next day or the next meal, everybody has a full, complete meal.
So at this point, you should keep turning. I am going to put in my garlic. I have minced garlic.
So in the pot.
And I put it at this point because garlic tends to burn pretty quickly. So because I'm close to putting in my beans, I'll put about, what was that, a 3/4 spoon of garlic. You can put more if you're a garlic lover. I just don't want to overpower the taste of the beans.
All right, so Velmah, right now in the pot, what do you have? You have onions.
I have white onion, I have tomato, I have ginger, and I have garlic.
Okay.
So as Rose said, the coconut milk is actually not as common throughout most of Kenya.
Yeah.
It's more common towards Mombasa, which is the coast, because they have the tropical weather. The coconuts grow there a lot more commonly. So they cook a lot of their food with coconut milk. I think for the rest of the population, it would kind of be a bit of an upgrade to having coconut milk.
Fix the camera when you speak, they can't hear you that well.
Again, keep working on mashing your tomatoes.
So has anyone here had ugali before or tried ugali before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like it? What was the experience like?
It was pretty authentic. I try to make it for myself, but it's never the same.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of an acquired skill, but hopefully we can all acquire it tonight.
My arms are always sore after making it though.
Sounds about right. Okay, so now I'm going to throw in my beans because I do like to see my tomato pieces in there, my onion pieces. If you do not, you can continue to mash this a little more. So my beans are going to go in.
What about the peppers? Did you add the peppers?
Not yet. I
Okay.
usually put the peppers towards the end. So if you do not like crunchy peppers, you can put them in before the beans and let them soften a little more. But I like a little crunch to them. It just gives a different kind of texture.
Should we add salt at any time?
Yes, once I stir the beans in, I will put a little salt in there. Or you can put a little salt in there if you like, yes. So I'm just draining because I don't want to have any water in there.
So you pre-did your own beans?
Yes, we get dried beans most of the time. And once you get the beans, you can soak them in water overnight if you don't want to have to boil them for a long time. And then after the overnight soak, then you would boil them in water until they become soft. Not too soft. They have a little bit of firmness to them because they will continue to cook once you stew them.
Okay.
So you're just turning and folding in the mixture so that everything is incorporated in there.
Someone is asking what's the temperature, I guess, the cooking.
I am at, I guess, an 8 on my stove. So it's a medium, it's medium.
Yeah.
It's not high, it's medium.
Oh, that's extra medium.
Extra medium. That is extra medium. So I'm not going to have to do the beans for too long because obviously they're already pre-cooked. I have my spices here. So this is turmeric. I have coriander powder. I have paprika, a little cayenne for those of you who like
Spicy.
yeah, who like the spice, and cumin. Actually, this is the cumin and that's the coriander powder. I mix them in my bowl and then I pour in I kind of wing it. You don't have to put as much as I do. I just really like extra spicy food, and I have a bigger pot. So if you're cooking less than this, definitely go down to about a half a teaspoon of each.
So it was turmeric, coriander,
Cumin, paprika, and cayenne. I think that's it.
and cayenne. Yeah.
So again, mix this in.
And you use curry mix to replace all of individual spices?
Yes. Yes, you can.
So yes, you can use curry mix.
You can also simply use an all-purpose seasoning and eliminate all the rest of these. If you're more into a simpler taste, it would still taste really good. So since we folded that, I will now add in my peppers. I have yellow peppers. That's just what was in my fridge. You could use any color bell peppers that you want.
So making all these foods right here, what's your favorite memory?
I think it's just my grandmother. She's not here with us anymore. I just love sitting at her feet and watching her cook. It was amazing to me that she didn't have much, but she would make the most amazing meals. And she was always so happy, and I was always so happy eating them. So those are my favorite memories cooking.
Yeah, okay. How much beans would you say? How much beans would you say?
These, what is this? Like 2-3 cups maybe of beans I have in here. Because it's a pretty large pot, so I think 2 or 3 cups. So I'm just letting it simmer for a while. You should not have too much liquid in there because we are going to add our coconut milk.
How many people will it feed? Roughly?
Oh, this, I mean, being that it's a side dish, by the time we're done with the milk,
Yeah.
this is 4 or 5 people. Yeah.
How's everyone doing?
Great.
Great, good.
Smells amazing already.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm nervous to use all of you, but I'm excited.
Yay.
I have to walk us through.
So usually when we cook back home, not a lot of people have microwaves or they might not have a stove like this. They'll probably be using kerosene to cook on a kerosene stove or a charcoal stove. So we maximize the time that you have for the fuel that you have. So by now I would have started the ugali water because it needs to boil before you start to cook, usually in the background, so that when it's time you just switch. So you're not using up as much fuel for this. But for today's sake, we'll take it slow.
Looks good.
That looks really good.
Yeah. Let me see.
Chickpeas as well. For those of you who love chickpeas, same exact procedure, and it would be awesome. So now I'm going to incorporate your beans since they're already soft. Everything should be meshing together. You should be smelling these amazing spices. I am going to add my coconut milk. I get this from, I have like a Filipino market by my house, and I love this particular brand, but you can use whatever coconut milk you would like. I have also previously used, it's a Caribbean powdered coconut. It comes in a pack and you mix it with water and it still tastes just as good. So because I have so many beans, I'm going to go in with the whole can. You do not have to use the whole can if you have less beans. And if you're not, if you do not want that much sauce, you don't have to.
Nadine, that looks so good.
Who, me?
Yeah.
We're watching.
It
Awesome.
looks good.
Coconut
My
milk.
next challenge will be to make skuma wiki.
Oh, nice. We
You'll
love it.
have to teach me how to do that.
Yes.
Yes.
I was wondering where was the skooma wiki with the ugali of a little bit disappointed, I'm not gonna lie.
We got it next time. We promise we'll do it. next time.
I went and bought kale for nothing.
Aww,
Kale is never for nothing.
true. So this just needs to simmer down. For those of you who want to use the fresh coriander leaves, I usually separate my stalks from my leaves, and I put the stalks in maybe 5 minutes to the end of cooking. They actually have a lot of flavor. A lot of people just use the leaves and don't use the stalks, but they actually have the most flavor. So I will throw these in 5 minutes to the end, and then when I'm done and I'm turning off the stove, I will throw the leaves and leave it covered, because you can eat those pretty raw for this.
So Velma, did you add salt?
Oh, I am so sorry. Please add salt. Thank you for the reminder. I don't cook with salt, but yes, please go ahead and add salt.
And then someone wants to know milk versus cream versus milk.
You can use cream. It'll just be thicker. And if you don't want so much of, I guess, the coconut essence, you can add a little water to balance it out. So that's fine as well.
Okay.
A question. Will it evaporate more if you put a lid on it or if you leave the lid off?
If you leave the lid off, it'll evaporate.
Okay.
So right now, if you want, you can put your lid on and turn it to low. I'm just gonna put my coriander stalks in there for those who are using the fresh coriander. I'm gonna let that mix in. So we'll put the leaves in completely at the end. So for those of you who are cooking ugali with me, you can turn this to the lowest setting. We're just gonna let it simmer for a while, and then we are going to make ugali. So I'm actually gonna switch burners here. Any more questions about the beans? The last part is just going to be, I'm letting it simmer down and absorb the coconut milk. I am going to finish off with the leaves right at the end, and our beans will be done.
And Velma, what temperature? Low?
The lowest. At this point, we're gonna put it on the lowest and let it simmer so we can start to cook our ugali. So I'm gonna put it way back on low. I'm gonna cover it. Make sure it's very low so you don't lose your water and burn your beans. So this pot is about 2 quarts and half full of water because I'm trying to feed maybe 3 adults. So get a pot that has a sturdy handle. You're gonna need to hold it and turn your ugali a lot. And you can put this on high for now. We're just gonna get the water boiling. It has to be boiling to start cooking the ugali.
How much water should we put in the pot?
So it depends on how many people you're trying to feed. This is what, maybe 3 cups? This is about 3 cups, and this will feed 3, 4, or 4 adults. So you can do a 1.5 cups if you're only feeding 1 person.
Oh, yeah.
And I have white
So
cornmeal.
someone has a question. Was
Yes.
the coconut milk the only liquid in the pot for the beans?
Yes, pretty much. I had I had a little liquid left just from the beans being boiled. I tried my best to strain them, so there was a little bit of liquid from that. But coconut milk is the only thing I added. If you do not want such a thick coconut milk, then you can add a little water. But the coconut milk should be sufficient, and that's why we keep it on low because it gets thicker as it cooks. So you do not want it to burn.
So what's the difference between white ugali and the yellow?
So white ugali is just what's common for us because we grow maize, and maize is white.
Right.
So when we grind it, it becomes white cornmeal. I actually never saw yellow corn until I came to America.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot for us too. We never had yellow corn. We never saw yellow flour.
Right. So it's kind of it's kind of weird, but I don't think the taste, in terms of taste, that
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
You should be able to make ugali with yellow corn flour.
Yeah.
I use a corn flour color bear. I don't know where it's where you can find it, unfortunately. But any corn flour that's just a little coarse, it shouldn't be too fine. I think it's the same flour that I've seen in the Mexican store. They used to make arepas, so that's kind of the consistency.
Does the water have to boil like?
Yes, it has to
100%?
boil until you see bubbles before you start to put in the flour.
All right.
Also, this is called a mwiko. It's the traditional spoon that's used in ugali. This is straight from Kenya with lots of love from my mommy. It's very sturdy and very hard, and this can cook a lot of ugali.
Yeah.
For today's sake, because my pot is a little small, I am just going to use a flat wooden spoon. This works just as well. The point is just to keep stirring and breaking up the lumps. So check on your beans, please. Turn them, and if you are using the coriander leaves, you could throw them in at this point. Fold them in there, and your beans should be good to go. You can squeeze one bean to check for doneness, but I am going to turn those off and leave it covered so that they stay warm. And that's it for the beans and coconut milk.
So
The beans?
what is the ratio of water to maize flour?
So that's a tricky one.
Well,
What you do is we're pretty much gonna add the flour little by little, and we're gonna look at the consistency more than measure it by cup. Because a lot of times you will lose some water to evaporation, so we'll pour little by little, and you will see how the consistency goes. It's kind of a porridge that will thicken and thicken and thicken up into, I guess, a mush, a harder mush.
That's funny. So you got to feel it, right?
Yeah. And you feel it because it gets stiffer and harder to turn it, and you know you're on the right track. And then when your pot starts to smell a little burnt,
Yeah.
then you know your ugali is pretty much done.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'd always see that little layer of burnt ugali at the end.
Yeah.
Then you're
The
doing it
crust,
right.
yeah.
And I think we would fight for that end piece. We would always fight to grab that piece and eat it because it was crunchy. Lots of fun.
You think everybody's ready for their ugali? We
No.
should try and do it together.
Yeah, is everybody ready to do the ugali, or should we wait for somebody? I don't want to rush. Yeah.
Ready?
My
All
water
right.
is almost boiling. We're getting bubbles, guys. We're getting bubbles. It's always an exciting feeling. It means ugali is on the way.
Yeah, and you want to make sure your water boils all through.
Yeah.
Can we get an overhead shot of the beans?
Yes, I will bring the beans
Yeah.
back. Let's see. Okay.
All right, let's show everybody how the beans look.
This is how the beans look.
Oh.
They smell
Yeah.
amazing. Somebody else done with their beans too?
Anyone else want to show their beans? Final result?
So the pre-cooked flour I've not used before. I saw the question.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
And
That's great.
can
Yeah.
add potatoes to your beans, and that kind of makes it stretch and fill our bellies more. So it's pretty cool. So I'm not sure about the pre-cooked cornmeal. Somebody asked me about it. I've never used that. I wonder if that means it doesn't need to cook as long. I guess we could experiment and find out. We might find out the answer today.
Did someone have pre-cooked?
Yes, somebody asked a question about
Oh,
if that is
pre-cooked.
pre-cooked.
Oh. Oh, yeah, my bag says pre-cooked white cornmeal. Is that okay? Yeah.
Okay, we'll try and see. Hopefully we can see that person's last. So my water is getting to the boiling point. Now this is important. When you put in the flour the first time, gonna start, as soon as you put in the flour, I'm going to be using my little measuring cup to help me. As you pour the flour in, you are already pounding it. And it's a circular motion, and you're beating out any lumps.
And it's simultaneous. As you pour, you continue mixing.
Yes.
And do we keep the water boiling?
Yes.
Yes.
So once you pour the flour in, you're going to see it kind of slow down. And after we beat out a couple lumps, we will turn it down to medium heat, just so the, like porridge, the bubbles don't burn anybody. All right, guys, are we ready? My water is boiling. So I'm gonna put in flour a little at a time. And as I said, as I pour it in, oopsie, be careful, don't be like me. I begin to turn it. And you're gonna keep turning. Don't let any lumps form. At this point, you can actually turn it down to medium just so you don't get the spatter on you.
So Velmah, is there a need to scoop out some hot water to the side in a cup, or that's optional?
So that came from, I've seen people do that. And that's because sometimes people add too much flour and they want to even it out by adding water. And if you add cold water, it's not ideal. Your ugali does not come out the same. It doesn't taste the same. So you can scoop out hot water and put it on the side so that if you do feel that you have put too much flour and your ugali is too hard, you can add the hot water back in. So just keep stirring it, circular, you're holding your pot.
Circular motions.
It's a hard turning, it's not soft. You're beating out all the lumps in there. Make sure you have it a little low again if it starts to bubble up. So circular, and then you're doing this to make sure the bottom, you're kind of reaching for the bottom so there's no lumps of flour down there. And you keep going circular. And again, it's thickening into a porridge. You can add a little more. Always add the flour a little at a time because the water will evaporate and then suddenly you have this hard lump of ugali. Now, some people eat a soft ugali. Some people have a harder ugali. For example, in Western, where I'm from originally, in Western Kenya, they make ugali with a lot of flour, really hard ugali. But the point was so that people would be so full, they wouldn't need to eat for a longer time.
So you mean the harder the ugali, the more filling, yes. And then the softer okay, got it.
And don't be in a rush to add more flour, again, because it will suddenly turn into a hard mush, as you can see. So I'm pushing like this, just to kind of turn and make sure everything is used up. So I push it forward, and then I turn the whole mass. And I push it forward again, and I turn the whole mass. Like someone said before, this is a complete workout. You can go circular as long as you still have the strength to do it, as long as it's not as hard yet. And then you push and you break the lumps. You push and you turn over. And we're just gonna do this motion over and over for a while. Beat out all the lumps.
And this is a good exercise for the fitness class.
Yes, it is. You get a treat at the end. How about that?
Biceps.
So this is still a little soft for me. I'm gonna add just a little more flour.
So what if somebody's water is bubbling a lot? They just need to keep adding the flour and keep mixing.
Yes, once you pour the flour, you shouldn't have too much bubble. And if you do, just turn your heat down and then add more flour. Put in, as I said, a little at a time until you get your desired consistency.
What would you ideally have the heat at?
Right now, I have mine at like a 7. Once I'm done breaking the lumps, I will drop it down to maybe a 3 and just let it sit for a while. But you shouldn't be too high right now. Medium high. Again, keep beating it and turning.
Did you hear that, guys? You shouldn't be too high right now while you're cooking.
I knew you'd say something about that, Nadine.
You know I would.
Speaking of that, where's Charles?
How's everyone doing? Any questions?
So as you turn, guys, you also spread it out like this. Spread it out to the sides of the pot. This just helps with the cooking. Even it out. You should not be seeing lumps. If you do, continue to beat and turn as I was doing before. But here I'm going to Spread it out like I did in my pot, and then now you turn it to low at about 3 for me. And then we give it some time to cook before we continue to turn again. So back home, my grandmother would make this with millet flour because she was diabetic and it was better for her. So that's a really healthy alternative you could use as well. Oh, I see somebody using pan. Pan is pretty good flour too. I've used that before.
It's Nina.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And when you hear that hiss, you know your ugali is on the right track. You should hear the flour hissing. And it'll sort of turn from smelling like raw flour to just, you know, when you start to get that kind of burnt smell, not yet, but towards that direction. It should not be smelling like raw flour anymore.
All right. Someone is asking,
Yes.
there is leftover. Could we heat it in the oven the next day?
Yes, so you can heat your ugali in the microwave.
Yeah.
You can actually put it in the freezer.
Yes.
I would slice it, put it in a Ziploc bag, and put it in the freezer, and that keeps it fresher for longer. But
Yes.
You can definitely reheat the next day. And the oven works as well. I just find with the oven, it kind of dries it out,
Yeah.
so your ugali gets hard. So, for example, I'll put it in a plate and wet a paper towel and cover it, and then put it in the microwave, and you'll still get the soft consistency.
Yeah.
So if your ugali has been sitting for a while, we continue to turn. Let's go again. You do a complete turn. You should see some of it sticking to the bottom. That's totally good. That means you're doing the right thing. And again, we pound it and we turn it. Pound it and turn it. Turn it and then spread it out again. Needs a little patience, this ugali, but I promise you it's worth it.
Can we see a better camera angle on how you're working the ugali?
You're not able to see me? Let me see if I can.
I can see you from the side. I'd like to see you from overhead view.
You're not seeing the overhead? It should be
It's
showing.
Nina.
Oh, okay, that's you over there. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
My mistake.
you should be seeing just my pod. Do you
Okay,
see?
now I see it. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Now, yeah.
my bad.
Turning.
I guess I wasn't paying attention.
I mean, with
It's
being
all
smelling
right.
that good, you're allowed to not pay attention. Okay, so I'm spreading this out. Again, we're on low and let it cook a little more. You'll hear hissing. Sometimes you'll see it rise and a little pop of air come up, and that's fine.
So, Velmah, is ugali still your favorite food?
Yes.
Yes. So, how many times a week do you have ugali?
I literally have ugali. At some point every day I have ugali. If I don't have it for dinner, I'll have a quick lunch, like whatever leftovers are there. I just love ugali and it's so versatile. You can have it with anything. I love ugali. It makes me feel like I'm at home. And I mean, I've been learning. My husband happens to be Caribbean, so I picked up a few of how they do their curry goats. And while they're doing their rice and peas, Velmah's always with ugali. So ugali goes with everything.
All right.
What I found was a good authentic experience was you gotta use your hands.
Oh yes, it tastes better too. I say that and
Yes.
people become crazy. It really tastes
It
different
does,
to
yeah.
me when I eat it with my hands.
Yeah.
So let's go back and turn our ugali again. And it should be getting stiffer each time you try and do this turn. You're turning it over. Flipping it. Use the sides of the pot to kind of help you mash up any lumps. And you turn it. So if you're completely lumpless, you can turn the heat up just a little for our final little phase. So I'm going to go up to a 5. Traditionally, ugali is rounded off and put on a plate in a round form, and then you cut it like you would a cake.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Traditionally, once the ugali is cooked, we usually like round it up, like you flip the pot onto a plate and you get the round dome of ugali and you would cut it into like little pieces so everybody grabs their piece onto their plate.
Okay. I've seen it like you put it on a plate and then it's been covered. I'm not sure if that's
Yes. So once we turn it completely and when it's ready, you kind of, I'll show you, you shape it into a dome and then you flip it onto a plate. And
But
that's
then you
upside
cut-
down.
but then you cover the plate as well. is
Yeah,
how
so
I-
that would be if you're still making vegetables or if you're gonna go back and reheat your vegetables, you would leave it covered with that pot until you were ready to eat it. And so that keeps the ugali hot.
How's everyone doing?
My arms are tired.
Yeah, that's to be expected.
Oh, I was just gonna say the same thing. My poor arms.
Yes.
And my dad won't help me stir.
Aw.
He just comes to spectate.
And the dogs want to help, but they don't know how.
They don't know how.
See, dogs, they eat ugali too.
Nina, you got to get Jacqueline in there.
Everyone getting that hissing sound from the ugali?
Kinda.
Kinda, okay. So I turned up my heat a little and I'm letting it sit for a little bit. Just letting the flour cook through. I'm gonna do one more turn. And yep, it's gotten very stiff. The bottom of my pot is browning, so that means my ugali is cooking well. So if you're at this stage where you feel your ugali has gotten thick enough, there's no lumps, you would now begin to shape it. And that's just by patting the sides of the ugali towards the middle to get the dome shape. You take off anything that's stuck, you put it back in there.
Is there an easier way to do it if the wooden spoon is getting cut to the ugali?
If it's getting very caught, then you probably don't have enough flour, or unless you're not using like the proper
Spoon.
no the type of flour. If you have like the really really soft flour, then it ends up being mushy and sticky as opposed to hardening as it cooks. I have known people to dip their cooking stick in cold water real quick and then go back up to the ugali. My mom always says it's a no-no because you kind of take it backwards. You shouldn't have cold water touch it. But that's one way that you can run cold water on your spoon real quick and then come and help shape it because then it will not stick. So
What's the name of the spoon again?
It's called a muiko.
It's flat on both sides.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I just forgot the name.
Yeah,
Okay.
muiko. The bigger the muiko, the bigger the ugali, the bigger the pot.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just shaping it now. I'm still on a medium heat. And you do not have to do this. You could certainly scoop your ugali straight from the pot onto your plate. But this is the traditional way.
Yeah, and this makes it better and easier to serve.
I'm gonna turn my heat up just a little. I am now at a 7. I have my ugali in a semi-dome shape. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Mine's not always perfect. Not perfectly shaped, perfectly yummy going down. So.
Not supposed to be perfect.
Scoop up everything that's left on the spoon because we don't waste any food. So once you turn it up, you'll hear it. It's continuing to cook and you hear the hissing continue, like a light little hiss. As you see, I have shaped it into a dome. I'll give it a few more minutes and then we will flip it onto the plate. If you flip it and it breaks down, then you probably have too much flour. So it's flour doesn't stick to each other. It doesn't mean you can't eat the ugali. It just means, you have an adjusted ugali, so to speak.
Just add water. Velmah,
Yes.
it looks like it's burning. Do you just add water?
No, no, just turn down your heat. It's okay for your pot to get like
Brown.
like you'll have a crust from the ugali, and that's actually okay.
Yes.
Traditionally, you would actually have to soak your pot overnight just to get the ugali out. So
Yes.
your ugali is doing fine. Should not be burning black. It should be like brown.
As good as new after you wash it.
Yeah.
I thought you said you would fight over that part though.
Yes, yes, yes. So the only thing is to eat that, you kind of wait for the pot to get cold,
Yeah.
and then now you kind of peel it off. And yes, everybody's waiting for that part.
Homemade corn chips.
Yes.
So as you see, my ugali is less sticky. As I've been sitting here and letting it sit in the heat, my spoon is just bouncing off of it, going in the right direction. You can see my pot is starting to brown at the bottom. I don't know if anybody can see, but I'll show you the end result. It is actually gonna start smelling like corn chips. That's how you know it's like cooking at the bottom. But don't let it burn too much. If you feel your heat is a lot, you can certainly turn it down. So who's ready to flip the ugali?
I'm not sure. I'm nervous.
No matter what shape it is, it'll be edible, I'm sure. So don't you worry about that.
So when you flip the ugali, how long do you wait usually to eat it?
You do not have to wait. The only time people wait, as I said, is because you'd be using the one stove. So you'd flip it and leave the pot over it while you've reheated your vegetables or whatever the case. But if you're ready to eat it, once you flip, you should be able to pull the pot right off.
And if you can't pull the pot right off, wait for gravity to do it.
To help you. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work for me either. We're gonna see. If it doesn't fall off, then I mean,
just a few
scoop
minutes,
it out and
reshape it.
reconstitute it. Yep.
Oh, that's dangerous. I'm gonna burn my fingers.
No, you're gonna use the muiko.
With the muiko.
But it's authentic. Once you get the muiko out, then you gotta use your hands, right?
Yeah, true. So let's see if I can do this on the camera. I'm gonna take my pot. Here's my plate, and I'm going to flip it. And there we go. Oh, it's too heavy, but there we go. It's falling apart because it's too heavy, but there's my ugali. So you can take the muiko and you can reform the
There you go, Nadine got it.
She got it?
Yeah. Who else flipped?
I'm going to
show us
my ugali. Let's see the ugali, guys. And once you have your ugali, you simply cut it. You cut it into quarters like that. and everybody grabs a quarter and puts it on their plate, and that's how they eat it. So let's plate.
Oh yeah, I got the crispiness.
Yes, good job.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be good.
I got my beans.
I'm still working on my crispy. It's not, maybe I need to turn the heat up.
Don't worry.
I have the same problem.
Which one? The crispiness or flipping?
The crispiness and the firmness. I think I didn't put enough.
Mm.
Too soft?
Yeah, it's okay. I get it. I just got to work a little harder.
Aw. We're here for you.
Don't feel bad for me.
No.
So this will be my plate with my beans, and obviously I'll have more ugali later because I have all these wonderful beans.
Looks good.